This is Gemara Metziah, Daf Ayin Ches. We're holding on the bottom of Ayin Zayin Amud Beis. We're 8 lines from the bottom. The first word on the line is Vinafik Azuzi Kani. Amar Ravam. Another din by Ravam. Hi man, Da'isvi Meya Zuzi Lechavri. Someone lends 100 zuz to his friend. Upare Zuza. And he pays him back. One zuz today, another zuz the next day. What's the halacha? Pirayin have, it is considered a good payment. That says Rava, that you're allowed to pay back in pieces. And the lender can't say, no, I want $100 at once. You're allowed to pay back as you wish. Ella, says the Gemara, but the lender could complain. Why could he complain? Because he could say, you're causing me to lose. If you paid me back hundreds at a time, then it would have been easier to watch. But since you only gave me one zuz every day, I spent it, I lost it. So it's not a taina that the lender could take him to Bezdin over. But he has tarumais, he could complain. He would have preferred to get back all at once. Continues the Gemara, who gaver the zavin lechamra lechavre. There was someone that sold a donkey to his friend, upashle chad zuzah, and one zuz remained. It was, let's say, 100 zuz for the donkey. He paid him already 99, and he owes him one last zuz. And the one who sold the donkey was going and asking the buyer, I need my last zuz. Yes, Ravashi was looking into the case. Ki agavna ma, yes, Ravashi, what's the din? Kani, oi loy kani. Is the buyer kaina the item or not? Do we say lamaisa, he didn't pay up for the item? Or do we say that no, the fact that there was one zuz left, there still is a kinyan. Amrli Mordechai Ravashi, Hachi Amar Avimi Me Hagrunya Mishmei Derav. Zuzi Dami Veloy Kani. One zuz, Zuzi is kizuzi Dami, is like many zuz, and therefore loy Kani. Just like if he wouldn't pay for a chunk of it, he wouldn't have a kinyan. So too, if he doesn't pay for one part of it, he doesn't have a kinyan. However, Amrli Ravacha Breder Rav Yezer Ravashi on the last line, we said according to Rava that there is a kinyan in a similar case. Amrlei Titargum Shemaitzcha b'moicher sadeyu. Explain the case. Someone who sells his field mipnei ra'asa, because it is bad quality. As we turn over to Ayin Ches Amid Aleph, says Rashi, what does it mean? And why does it make a difference, we should say, if he sold his field because of ra'asa, because of poor quality? Says Rashi, Tanan Sadi deblav unsa dezuzi nami have mizavin law. In such a scenario, then Rav is going to agree that even though the seller wants that last zuz, it still is a kinyan. Because he wants to make sure that the buyer doesn't back out. So in such a scenario, there would be a kinyan, even though he's looking for that last zuz. That's only in a scenario in which one wants to get rid of the field because of its poor quality. But in a regular case, you sell a field, then, says the Gemara, there's no kinyan until it is paid in full. Says the Gemara in the top line of Ayin Chesam and Aleph, the following is Pshita. Says the Gemara, if one wanted to sell something for 100, but he couldn't find someone to buy it, so instead he sold something for 200, meaning a different field. He wanted to sell, as Rashi on the third line speaks out, Hayitzarach Lamei Azuzi. Ruvain needs $100. So he says, okay, I'll part with a small field for $100. He couldn't find someone to buy the smaller field, so he sold a larger field for 200. V'ka'ayel v'nafik azuzi, and he's going to get the money that he didn't pay yet. Lo yikani, there's no kinyan. Ella, that is pashid, and in that case, there's no kinyan. Why, says Rashi in the first narrow line? Te'anan sadid al karchach moicher hamoiser v'yachol leimer lekach isi machzer achar hamois like nosadik etana tachtel. He says, I need the cash because I want to buy another field. So in that case, there's no kidding if he didn't pay in full. But what's the shaila? Says the Gemara 3 lines down. Ella. And he couldn't find someone to buy the small field. But if he would have been matriach himself, he would have found someone. But he didn't. And he said, I'll just sell the $200 one. Do we say that it's a similar story that he told him they were also from the fact that he didn't try hard and he just got rid of it, shows that he just needed the cash badly, and therefore there would be a kinyan, or not? Says the Gemara, Teiku, we're going to have to wait for Aliyah Navi to answer this Shaila. We quote the final portion of the Mishnah, 6 lines down, in Chesam and Aleph. Sochar, Esachamar, Vesakadar, etc., Vechulu, Soichar Aleim, Oi Miton. The Mishnah concluded that if someone hires a chamar, a donkey driver, or a kadar, a wagon driver, and in the middle of the deal, the worker backs out, halacha is that the one who is hiring could hire someone to replace those workers, and he's able to he could trick the first workers. Says the Gemara, ad kama soichar aleim, and the first workers are going to have to pay. So until how much can he hire other workers? Amar Rav Nachman ad kidei schar, until the value of their whole schirus. Eser of the Rav Nachman arba v'chamishin zuz, says the Braisa. Amar lekitani shebasa chavila v'yadai. That's talking about a case in which there was a chavila, a bundle of tools of the worker that the one that was hiring got, and therefore he's able to utilize that as well. But let's say the seller, the employer, didn't get anything, then he's only able to hire according to their wages. Again, over here it said ad arba'am v'chamisha, meaning even more than their wages. So the Gemara is answering the reason why here you can do even more. Shabbat chavili yadai, as the last Rashi before the Mishnah speaks out. If the employer has the tools of the worker allowed, then he can even utilize that. As the worker walked off the job with those tools, that's the reason why he could pay even 40 or 50. Says the Mishnah, someone rents a donkey to lead it on the mountain, but the renter went and led it in the valley, or vice versa. You rented a car to drive it on the street, and you drove it on a mountain. You drove it in the, off-roading. The same distance. Umeisa, and the animal died. Chayiv. The halacha is that the soicher, the one who rented it, is chayiv. Case number 2 in the Mishnah. If the animal slipped, potter, got overheated, now you're going to be chayiv, you're going to be pot. If it had to do with the ascent, then chayiv, the renter is chayiv. Asoicher is chamar vivrika. So rents a donkey and became blinded, or shenasa anagriya, or the king took it into service. The renter could say, here it is, it's yours, I have nothing to do with it. If the animal dies or has a broken limb, then the renter has to pay the value of the donkey that's given back a donkey. So says the Gemara, let's understand what's going on in the Mishnah, the intricate halachos of renters. Ma'ishna reishna doikla maflig, ma'ishna seif the kamaflig asks the Gemara, and Rashi speaks out the missing details. Ma'ishna reishna doikla kamaflig, bein hochlak ala hochama, between how the animal died, overheating or slipping. Ma'ishna seifa. Why in the Seifa Deloy Maflig we didn't make a difference? Says the Gemara as follows: Amri Dvei Rav Yanai. Reisha, the first case Shemishra Machmas Avir. The first case it says that the animal died, but then due to slipping, it didn't overheat. It died due to the air that the animal wasn't used to in the area that the renter brought the animal. Avira dahar kala, so the amrina that we could say avira dahar kala, avira v'amrina avira debika kala. It was the location where the animal was that killed it, and that's the reason why the Mishnah said if you brought it to lichal ar, lichal bika, lichal ar, you're going to be chayiv, because we can just simply say it was the location that caused the issue. Teretz number 1. 4 lines to the bottom. Chanina Amar, Gon Shemesa Machmas Uvsina. The case is it died due to exhaustion. Again, had to do with where you brought the animal. A third Sharabar Gon Shenachash, a snake bit it where it was. And again, therefore the renter is chayiv. And a fourth Sharabar Chibarabam Riach Ramani Rameri Damar Kolamavir. Al Dash Al Balabayis says Rameir right away. Nikra Gazlan, you're called a Gazlan. So 4 pshatim, why when the Mishnah opened up and the Mishnah said alich la'ar v'alich la'beka, and vice versa, the Mishnah said very simply that you are chayiv. 4 different ways of explaining that it was the renter was obligated, whether it was the air, whether it was the exhaustion, etc., etc. And the last teretz was Rameir, Nikra Gazlan. So says Rav Gemara on the top of Ayin Chesam and Beis, hey Rameir, which Rameir? Ilim Rameir did Sava. If this is the Rameir in the case of the dyer, which is what? Did Tinami learn to the Mishnah? At the end of Abakama, Noisin Samer Litzava. You gave wool to dye a particular color, and he didn't do the job. Rameir Aimer teaches Rameir. 1 second, I'm sorry, the Gemara just shrunk. There we go. Rameir Aimer teaches Rameir. Nicely to make samarai. You have to pay the value of the wool. The dyer has to pay him because he ruined your item. Rav Yehuda Aimer, Mashavach Yisrael Atzia, Nicely says Tzia, B'mitzis, Yelashach, Nicely says Shvach. You pay whichever is more. So Mimai, where do we see from the sin of Rameir like our Mishnah? Dilma Shiny Awesome, Dekanya B'Shinei Maisa, which of course was a whole singing over there. Maybe the reason why the dyer has to pay is because there's a kinyan that happens B'Shinei Maisa when the wool is changed colors. Elahar Rameir says Gemara, and therefore there's no raya that call him Mishana. Anyone who changes is Nikra Gazlan. Says the Gemara, okay, I'll give you another ayah. Elohah Rameir, the following Rameir, the Migvas Purim, the Rameir of the Purim collection, the Tanya, Migvas Purim, the money collected for Purim, let's go for Purim, Migvas Ayir, Oisayir, Vein Medaktikin, Bedavar, Aval, Loichenes Agolim V'Sheichtin, V'Eichlin Oisam, V'Amboiser Yipol, Likishal Saka. But what are you allowed to do, says the Brisa? You're allowed to buy animals with the extra money, shacht it, eat it, and the remainder, the maisar, the remainder of the meat should be sold and put it into the tzedakah for the aniyim. Rav Eliezer, Aymar Migas from the Purim, Binani Rasha Likach Mehan, Ratua Lesandalo, you can't take anything, it's purely for Purim needs. Elim Kain, Hestem Amaymid Anshe Yair, David Rav Yaakov. Excuse me, unless unless there was a Tanai that they made in the presence of the townspeople, unless they had specifically spoke out that they're allowed to use the monies for something else. This is different Rav Yaakov Shemra Meir. For Rashbag Mekel, but in this case, Rav Shimon Gamliel is Mekel. that you're allowed to switch around what the money is collected for. But what do we see? We see that according to Rameir, you're not allowed to use the money for anything else. So this is going to be the shita that we're quoting, that according to Rameir, Kol Mishana, if you switch anything, Nikra, Gazlan, says the Gemara again, no raya, why not? Telma Asanami the Daita Purim with Yavle, they gave it explicitly for Purim, but it's not necessarily a raya to Rameir Shita by us. Elahar Rameir, about 20 lines from the wide lines. The first word of line is the Midi Achrini, the third attempt, which Rameir, the Tani of Shimon Elazar, Aimer Risham Rameir. No, you see, dinar lani, if someone gives a dinar danani, likach loy cholot by a shirt, loy by talis. He's not allowed to buy a talis. Talis, he wanted to buy a talis, loy by cholot. So clearly, Rameir is of the opinion that you can't not listen to the Baal Bayis. That's going to be the same reason of Rameir by us, that if you change Nikra Gazlan, says maybe that case is different. Because if you buy the right item, people will come to suspect. Damri Inshi Amr Plani Zvani Leila Busha Amr Zvani Amr Planya Zavina Leila Busha Le Planya Anya. So and so said, I'm going to buy a garment for so and so the Ani Velo Zavale, and you buy it for him. So that's the reason why you're not allowed to not buy that which you said. If you said you buy a talis, you can't buy a shirt, etc. Now, Zavani Leila Klima Velo Zavale Imkei list him in the Achshad. So says the Gemara, so Braisha should say Mibnei Achshad. My Mibnei Shemaver al Das Shal Ba'is. The way that we're explaining right now is like do that you're being Maver al Das Ba'is. Is that people are going to suspect that the Ba'is didn't fulfill his words. Shema Mina Misham Deshanihu. Must be, you're right. It's because you deviated. Maver al Das Ba'is. Anyone who changes from the Das Ba'is, Nikra Gazlan is called a Gazlan. That is going to be the Shita of Rameir, proven from this case of Noisin Dinar La'ani Lich Lechalak, and he bought something else. Continues the Gemara, 6 lines from the white lines, Aseches Chamar Vehevrika. So when he rents a donkey, and the donkey slips, he could say, Harei Shalcha, Vehevrika, we have to see exactly what that means, something breaks. Harei Shalcha Lefanecha. Says the Gemara, My Hevrika, over here they translate Avrika as Narita, that the animal became blind. Rav Amar Avzakas, it means breaking that part of one of the bones of the animal broke. Hud Amar Lahu, someone said this right, Avzakas b'milsa demalka. I saw moths eating away the clothing of the king. Amar Lei b'mai, Batli b'tli kasef, oy b'tli zav. Which garments did you see the moths in, the silver or the gold? That he said he saw it on the silver garments, and they executed him. And they let him go. Either they realized he was lying. Why? Because the moths don't eat flax, and when he said silver, he meant flax. Or it meant that he said gold, they knew he was telling the truth, and therefore they let him go. Continues the Gemara on the first wide line. Or this animal was conscripted into the service of the king. The guy could say, Harei shalcha lefanecha. Amaraf, on the first wide line, this is only referring to temporary service to the king, and eventually the animal will be returned. You got to give him a different animal. Ushmul Amar, no. If they take the animal as you were going with its tam, the renter did nothing wrong. But if it wasn't in the way of walking, then he could say, then he cannot say, and he rather has to pay him back a different animal. Rav and Shmuel. Meisvei asked the Gemara on the sheet of Shmuel, 5 lines into the wide lines, or it became a shaita. Mesa for died, Shenas the Nagra. So that's going to be the difference when you pay back an animal or not. El Shmuel Kasha. According to Shmuel, there's no difference between a Nagra Chazaris and a Nagra Sheina Chazaris. Asks the Gemara, This Bryce is Shver and Shmuel. V'chitim, maybe you're going to tell me L'Shmuel Nami like Kasha Gam B'derech Elichasa Nil Gam B'Shloim B'derech Elichasa Nil like Shmuel differentiated. Hamidiktani Seva, but for the end of the Bryce that said of Shmuel Zaymer in B'derech Elichasa Nil Am L'Shachov Nechem Lev Chayv Am L'Chamar. For the fact of Shimon Elazar, Gufa says that Chilik in the Bryce is clear. There's no chilik, so how Shmuel can answer? Says Shmuel, what's the kasha in this brayso? I only give Shimon Elazar. Another Amri give Shimon Elazar teretz number one. Classical says the Gemara. Says the whole brayso is really Shimon Elazar, and it's explaining itself as follows. Mesush nasa nagira chayv l'chamar. Ba'med dvar ma'murim. Shloi b'derech halichazan Allah. Aval b'derech halichazan Armalai. Harei shalcha lefanecha. We turn over to Ayin Tes Amar Aleph Divrei Shimon Elazar. Shehoya. Sorry, we don't have the page in front of us, but just two more lines. Shehoya Shimon Elazar. Aimer Amdel Chazan Nilam. Aimer Lai Rishal Chala v'nechavim lav. Chayv lam l'chamar. Acher, we'll pick it up from here, continuing to ask within the opinion of Shmuel, Shimon Elazar, etc. B'siyata d'Ishmaya.